quick video on the CER density summative assessment we took. And the reason I'm creating a video is because I don't want to necessarily take up a whole class period going through CERs, talking about CERs. What do you need to do to fix your CERs? Because a lot of your classmates don't need that. They passed the test. So I'm not going to have them sit down and listen to it all again if they don't need it. Likewise, I've got students that are absent, and I've got students that may want to listen to it multiple times so that they can get better. So by creating a video, it actually gives you an opportunity to watch the video, to rewind the video, to rewatch the video, and to get really good at writing CERs before the retake next Wednesday. So I don't know if you noticed this or even if you looked at it, but at the very top of the test was a rubric. This is a generic rubric that I can use on any of the CER tests that we take. And they basically outline what I'm looking for in a CER. So make sure you use these and make sure you look at them, especially when you get done writing the test. For example, I had some people ask me, well, what part of the test does the scientific principle go in? And if I come down here, the R stands for reasoning, right here, scientific principles. The other thing you can do, if you didn't want to use this, and I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to have this on every single test this year, but at least in the beginning of the year I will. But if you look over on my walls, I have 3 posters, a claim, an evidence, and a reasoning. Hopefully you use those. Again, that same person or those same people is multiple people. Well, in fact, I had a whole bunch of people that didn't put any scientific principles in their reasoning at all. They should have at least looked at the posters, read through them, and the posters say include scientific principles. And hopefully that would have jogged their memory and say, oh, I need to add these. So use these resources. Now, the number one mistake that I saw with this test is right up here. Did you read the top of the test? The test says which material or materials would sink if placed in fresh water. I bet at least a third of the students simply copied their practice test and put it right on this actual summative assessment. And I even told you the practice tests, they're similar. They're very similar, but they're not the same. So you cannot copy. But a third of the students, approximately a third of the students, didn't listen and they just copied it down anyway. Well, the reality is then you all got beginnings because it was wrong, because this one deals with what would sink. So the practice test really would have guided you through this and it should have helped you. The only problem is, 1, you did not listen to when I said don't copy it, and 2, you didn't read the top part of the test. So here's my claim. The materials that would sink if placed in fresh water are lead, steel, aluminum, concrete, and brick. Now, if you were confused about that and you were thinking, well, how am I supposed to know that? Go to the scientific principle. Scientific principle number 3, and again, all the scientific principles are true, but the one that pertains to this CER is right here, number 3. An object with a density greater than 1 will sink. So it tells you which ones will sink, and ones that are less than 1 will float. So just by going there and coming back up here, it'd be, oh, lead is greater than 1, steel is, aluminum is, concrete, and brick. They're all greater than 1. So that's why I mentioned lead, steel, aluminum, concrete, and brick. The other thing I want to point out, what I have on this test is the bare minimum to get a proficient score. So I don't want you to think that, oh, I wrote what you have or something very similar. Why isn't that advanced? This is just the bare minimum proficient. So that's that. That's the claim. So what do we have for evidence then? So I actually have 2 options for you for evidence. So just like in the practice test where you had to list all the materials and you had to list the densities, you just had to do that as well. Now there was 2 big mistakes that I often saw. About 7, 8 of you didn't have any labels. You would have 11.3, but you wouldn't have anything behind it. And I don't know what the 11.3 means. 1.6. And you might say, well, just go up to the table and look, Mr. Watoon, why can't you do that? Well, this is a writing process. I'm looking at your writing. Can you explain in writing what you mean and what evidence it is? Not can I infer from your reading and then through the chart. So you got to make sure you have that. And the second most common mistake, actually, the first most common mistake in this, very few, about 5, 6, 7 of you didn't include the labels. I had a whole bunch of you not have any numbers at all. You said you were right with the lead, the brick, the steel, the aluminum, the concrete, but you didn't use any data. Remember when we talked about quantitative data, meaning numbers? If you didn't have any numbers, I couldn't give you a proficient. In fact, if you didn't have numbers or labels, more than likely you were at a beginning level. So make sure you have those. And you might say, well, how do I know what the labels are? They're labeled right up here. You just had to copy and paste. Now, option 1 was put it in a paragraph form. Option 2 is just to put it like this. Have it as a bulleted form. And you might look at this and say, wow, Mr. Attune, that's like 5 sentences. I could very easily have a comma in between here, then just don't have a upper or the uppercase, have a lowercase. I just could put commas here and then put and, comma, and concrete. So I could get it all in one sentence. I just chose to put the little periods there and to make it 5 short sentences. Now, the other thing I want to mention, a number of you didn't capitalize anything. You have to have good capitalization, punctuation, grammar. If you read this, it's got to make sense, because if it doesn't, as the reader, me, the grader, I don't have full understanding and I might have to lower your grade. So make sure you have proper spelling, grammar, punctuation. Make sure you reread things to make sure that it flows. So, option 1, option 2 for data. Make sure you have the numbers, make sure you have the labels. So, scientific principles, we already mentioned, it's number 3. It's the same one that was on the practice test. Yes, this one mentioned density, but it just says that density is a unique characteristic. It has nothing to do with which ones will sink or which ones will float. In this case, it was which ones will sink. The practice test was which ones will float. So, your reasoning. Your reasoning has got to be a good sized paragraph. Several of you only had a sentence or two. Some of you only had 3, 4, 5 words. The reasoning has to be a full-size paragraph. You have to restate your claim. You have to have a scientific principle. I'm looking for you to explain why the data supports your claim using a scientific principle. In other words, why is this relevant? And then have a concluding statement. So some of this, is a little iffy. Some of these could be combined. For example, technically, if you started with the scientific principle, went to here, you could restate your claim and have the concluding statement all in one. It is possible. So this is what I wrote. And what I did was similar to the practice test, I highlighted things. Now, where did I get my claim? Oh, I just copied and pasted from the top of the test. That's the beauty of doing these online. So I just copied and pasted. I didn't need to write anything. Then here's my scientific principle. SP number 3 supports my claim because an object with a density greater than 1 gram per cubic centimeter will sink in fresh water. I copied and pasted it from up above. Now, keep in mind, do something like SP number 3 or scientific principle number 3, because a few of you kind of hinted at this. You didn't use the exact wording. So now as the grader, I'm trying to think, okay, is that the scientific principle? Is it not the scientific principle? And if I don't know for sure, I may look at it, and if there's not enough evidence, I may say, well, I don't know. So then I might have to lower your score as a result. But this SP number 3 really is like bling, 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 bling. Hey, Mr. Attune, here is the claim. This is it right here. So then it draws my attention to it, and I know you have it. Now, here's the biggie. Why does this matter? Well, the lead, steel, aluminum, concrete, and brick all have densities greater than 1. So this is my explanation of why the data supports your claim using scientific principles. Again, this is probably the number one most missed part, was people did not explain. And I know you might come back and say, well, Mr. Attune, in the evidence, everything was greater than 1. Why does it matter if I mention it down here? Because you're proving to me that you can write reasoning, that you can explain yourself in writing. So you don't want to come back and say, well, you should infer as the grader what I was meaning and that everything was greater than 1. You have to specifically tell me. And then my concluding statement, therefore, I didn't have this right. Let me quick change this. Therefore, 5, see? By rereading it, I even caught a mistake. So amazing what happens when you reread stuff. Therefore, the 5 substances mentioned above will all sink if placed in water. All right. So let me move this over a little. to get the camera back on it. So make sure you ask questions if you have them. Now, the actual retake is going to be just a little bit different, but it's going to be very similar. And I cringe when I say that because I don't want you to come back and copy this whole test on your retake. In fact, you can't even use this test on your retake. You can use your original notes or you can use new notes, but you can't use this test on a retake. So prepare, watch this video, be ready to go for next Wednesday. You'll have one shot to retake it. Hopefully it'll be a good one. Make sure you ask questions if you have them, so don't wait till the last minute to watch this video. Thanks. Bye.